Alright everybody, it's John from Maine here. I'm just making another impromptu vlog, particularly about the current situation that is going on, and particularly a few things I like to actually talk about with regards to the current situation, because, well, I know if I were to actually say this out loud, well, YouTube probably would be marking this video up for complete utter censorship. So, I'd rather go over a few things about, I think the term here it goes. C virus would be more or less appropriate. Yeah, C virus would be much more appropriate. And it's definitely a much more fun thing to do if you're ever caught under censorship. But with regards to the way things are going on, especially here in the UK, it seems, with the way especially the government is handling things. But first of all, I'd like to get on to discussing how people actually are reacting to coronavirus. Now, it's very understandable because, we have to have that herd immunity and we've got to take precautions. Mainly people here have actually been taking precautions. They've been making sure that they take their hygiene very seriously, that they keep themselves at home and only leave when it's necessary, like e.g. to maybe walk the dog, for example, because that tends to be a bit of a much more vital thing. Or even just leaving for work as well. I mean, that's a good thing to happen. But then there's this new trend that's been happening since last Thursday, because we're now into April. This is the 2nd of April 2020 that I'm recording on right now. And just looking back at the calendar just over there to try and check the previous date, it's 26th of March, last Thursday, getting it right. There was this new trend going on, particularly promoted especially by the mainstream media, the mass mainstream media outlets of all places, where they're demanding all of us, the British public, who effectively are now having to suffer under the actually de facto would be kind of called martial law, because we're being told you have to stay. We're going to have to stay. The government's saying, well, you have to stay indoors, because if we catch you going out for any kind of unreasonable grounds that they deem to be unreasonable, because they can just think out of the blue for literally anything. It can somehow. There's been a few cases where the power can be abused, especially in South Derbyshire, along with even I've been hearing in Huddersfield, where people are now being encouraged to actually snitch on anybody that's carrying groups as small as 2, believe it or not. But of course we're being asked to, as the public, to come outside, whether it be outside onto the into the front driveway, into the front gardens of the properties that we live in, or even the back gardens as well, because the back garden is kind of outside the window from where it's have to do. So I can't even just record outside the window at the moment because it's far too sunny, but it just basically brighten up the camera, and you can see definitely from over here, because I had to basically move to maybe reduce the brightness as much. So I'm sorry if perhaps it's giving me a bit of a skewed vision, especially from the top of my head here. To come out and happily applaud at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean, well, no longer it's 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, we're now in 8 p.m. British Summer Time, actually, because we've had to put the clocks forward as of Sunday. To come out and applaud all the NHS workers and carers, because they're kind of overwhelmed and struggling at the moment, and it's very understandable because of the current situation and the outbreak that is going on, and the amount of people that have had to check in hospital with symptoms, and even those that are in hospital with not with coronavirus related symptoms, but because of injuries of other kinds not related to the current outbreak that is going on. And they're very overstretched, and there's workers that are having to quarantine themselves and go back into the house, into their own property, to keep themselves self-isolated according to the guidelines. And it was quite good last week. I know, admitting, I was a bit apprehensive about it last week, but eventually I got won over to it, because everybody was at that time, because we only thought it was just going to be the one time, coming out and actually applauding and showing it, and basically showing all the workers there that we're also grateful. I mean, I definitely have seen good examples of this in footages from whether it be Italy and Spain, where people from especially the tower blocks have come out to applaud the workers at the local hospital that pass by, even especially the ones that are actually beside the hospitals that are there. And it's very understandable, the feelings of support from the people who are living in this country and what we're going through at the moment. But as of today, I only just found out from this morning really, even when checking social media, especially through Twitter, we are now being asked to do it again. Again, every single week to come out and do things. Well, why am I being angry about it? Well, I'm going to actually delve into this. Because, well, it's one thing to have a good feeling of patriotism when something is being done absolutely right. Because we kind of are having to get through this current situation. But, with all honesty, trying to come out onto our driveways because we're asked to by the media every single week to applaud all the workers in the NHS. Admittedly, one of the neighbours across the road actually is an NHS worker, and she still works in the local Valian hospital, and I do appreciate her doing her job to go to the hospital and actually help people, especially before the current situation. But on what ground, I don't know what the current word is, on what grassroots basis do we all have to be somehow made to come out of our property, to stand outside in properties, even if it's on a rainy day, to come out and absolutely fully applaud every single week at 8 PM on the Thursday to say how much we appreciate them? Well, that's the thing, because we already do. The thing is, within our own consciousness and mindsets, we already do appreciate the NHS. We already flipping do. We already appreciate the workers who are there helping us out every single day. Even those, I'd have to give my thanks to even those who are working in the private hospitals as well, helping people out as well that do use their services too. But the thing is, we've not actually won a war, really. Here's a blunt thing. We've not actually won a war. We haven't even actually regained our freedoms whatsoever, basic freedoms and liberties whatsoever. That's something I would definitely be wanting to applaud if that was the case. But to be asked to come out every single week on a Thursday 8 PM is, well, kind of tantamount to pointless virtue signalling. Sorry to mention this, but it kind of is. Well, it's kind of like, well, the often excuses I get because I kind of do tell people about, well, this is kind of pointless, it's just pointless virtue signaling, it's basically just applauding over nothing really. It's to basically go, oh, but the NHS workers, you gotta appreciate the working people who are there. But I'm like, well, yeah, I get that they're there. Because, admittedly, yes, both my parents are working class, and yes, I do live in a lower middle class family. And even if we are kind of rich by some working class standards, we kind of still are close to the working class scale of how we should actually, of how we can just about live our lives. But we kind of get the people are working there. So the real point of why I don't want to do this, it kind of feels, especially as it's been advertised today, it's kind of borderline going into very pro-government propaganda. Actually, very pro-government propaganda, it seems. Yeah, kind of equivalent to how people would end up coming out onto the streets in particularly communist countries. I have to point out, as somebody who sits on the fence here, not talking about there would be any other places. I'm not ruling out it probably happened in Nazi Germany during the 1930s as well, with all, particularly those under Nazi occupation, along with those living in Nazi Germany at the time, had to come out and appreciate, Adolf Hitler, or else they were probably going to suffer the consequences. But there was also those who, particularly in the communist countries, like back in the old USSR, that's the Soviet Union, along with China, along with North Korea, and many other places as well. Probably even forget to mention them as well. They're being told, hey, come out in the streets and appreciate your dear leader, and clap for them in the streets, or else. Yeah, that kind of atmosphere is what it's feeling to. I mean, anybody that dares to come out and say, well, do you know what, this is kind of a load of rubbish, really. We can appreciate and applaud literally any single time, so why on earth do we all have to come out as a collective at 8 PM from each of our properties to do that? You kind of are met, understandably, with quite a lot of backlash from people who are very, very passionate about the NHS, about defending it, especially when it seems to have cut back frontline services, particularly what the governments do. And well, it kind of is the equivalent collective guilt feeling is, because they make you feel guilt every single time you decide to speak out about it, just like what I'm doing at the moment. Which is kind of like an emphasise on the communist on how people end up having to actually celebrate the particularly selected holidays and even celebrating the leaders in the communist countries. If they were to even just object in in a very ideal kind of setting where they were saying, well, do you know what we can say? We can say we're good for them any time. Why do we have to come out a certain date for all these things, even if it's just every single week? And the response would be, well, but think of the working classes. They help to make communism the way it is, and the country that you're living in the way it is. That's why we're out here. I mean, you're not going to be popular if you end up making the stance. And quite understandably, in what is kind of still for now a free country here in the UK and Scotland, especially where I'm living in, that kind of is a case where you kind of have some sort of collective guilt, where if you decide to say, look, we don't like certain features about the NHS in the way, there's some procedures that are corrupted. I mean, I have to highlight one example of, when my mum kind of told me when I was still in the womb back in, was close to the 7th of April 1994, when I was born at that time, and she was in the Vale of Leven Hospital, being attended to by the nurses who are there, and even given therapy treatments, like going into even selected pools that are there to help calm her down and to help her cope through the birth that was going on. She one time ended up completely falling over onto her back, and she felt very sore, and it kind of felt she didn't really feel the same way physically, health-wise since. I mean, she can do most healthy things, but that kind of accident ended up leading to her eventually getting back arthritis, and she admits that to this day, the NHS, unfortunately, those responsible, unfortunately, have they've yet to apologise to any of us, well, as a whole family, really, because we get affected by this as well, because we do care for each other. Nothing's happened, and of course Mum said to say, yeah, there are procedures in place where, yes, according to the law, you can sue the NHS if they do anything wrong to you, if they end up causing any bad wrongdoings to you which they knowingly could have prevented, then you can take them to court for it and gain compensation. But the way she ended up describing things was, well, because she feels a bit too, if I get blunt with this, a bit too forgiving to the NHS, without sounding a bit like completely extreme Tory here. She feels a bit too, most people, it seems, including my mum really, kind of feel a bit too forgiving towards an organisation like the NHS if they do anything wrong, because, well, what ends up putting them off trying to hold them accountable is to then say, oh, but they're struggling financially enough, so the last thing we want to do is just put them through any more financial stress. And ultimately, this kind of collective thought ends up really putting them off, actually putting off accountability as a result. And that kind of does concern me as a citizen living here, because if you're in a place where you can't imagine if you cannot ever hold the healthcare provider that you've got accountable for anything they've done wrong, and the law often recognises them as being in the right and you the patient, were in the wrong, well, that would be considered very counterproductive to a free society. Well, of course, if I was in a situation where, if I was married in the future, and if a future Mrs. Rainey came along, and we decided to have a child, and she ended up going into labour, and we ended up going to the hospital, and a similar thing like this happened, well, my response really, including encouraging her on really, would be to say, you're not this time, NHS, you are not getting away you're not getting away with that accident. You damaged my wife's back. You're probably going to cause her, very likely, a lot of long-term problems, including arthritis. So unfortunately, we will need to take you to court to have conversation for us. But before we know, she could be probably out of a job that she likes that involves a lot of physical fitness as well. And that's the kind of collective thought that ends up putting people off about it. There seems to be some sort of guilt every time somebody ever thinks about trying to sue the NHS and hold them accountable for anything going wrong. I'm just saying this really to kind of add as a balance here, because nobody is allowed to get away with any wrongdoing anytime, anywhere really. So, and there's not really to be any kind of special exemptions here for any kind of group or individual. That is what happens here. And so this is why I kind of highlight this video, as if to say, and actually fully declare that, well, as of this evening, I will absolutely have zero cooperation whatsoever in trying to take part in these kinds of celebrations, as much as I'm not really going to stop anybody else from trying to carry out these kinds of celebrations. I'm not going to stop them. I mean, yes, I may get driven a little nuts if I do hear lots of people out in the street, and even towards the other streets from when I look outside the back window, clapping their hands and cheering, saying, "Oh, whoa, 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 look, good for NHS, good for you, NHS." I'm saying, what really? What gives? But I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to probably have you get reported to the police or anything else, or even have any reprisals against you because you dare do that. After all, it is free speech after all. But as an individual myself, as much as I'm not trying to sound too narcissistic here, there probably will be those as well that are saying, look, maybe this is a bit pointless. Maybe this is a bit too cringeworthy for us. Maybe we should be applauding. I'm going to list some of the people, well, because they don't, because the bit of the irony here is they don't get included as well. It involves transport workers, food bank workers. Transport workers includes those who are delivering our goods, still delivering our goods around about the country, because despite all the problems going on. I mean, back in 2018 when we had the snow, most of the trade nearly ground to a halt because of the snow. I mean, that was a proper test we had back then. There's also food bank workers who have to give out the food to the poor. There's also those who transport the food to the food banks as well, and also those who go out of their way to help others live in their neighbourhoods, to help them out with their shopping, especially the elderly when they have to do that. And also there's basically been some NHS workers and doctors who they can't even come forward for reasons of not wanting to either lose their jobs and or probably face any kind of legal repercussions as well. They've been coming out and saying that they've actually been sent letters saying that they're being told that they can't actually resuscitate any even just suspected coronavirus victims, because their fears that they end up might catching it, and they may end up catching it from them, which is a really bad shame to have, really bad thing going on here. And you know what I mean here. They don't get included. There's been much else that I've probably forgotten to include here. They don't get included in the list, or even the teachers who are keeping online schooling going on, who are teaching children from home via the internet, and they don't get applauded out. They don't get included for the clap for our NHS, clap for our carers thing. Yeah, that's the irony. They don't get included, or even just as a bonus here, because this is only from me speaking. What about particularly those taking part as part of the Yellow Vests in France, still going to this day, despite all the big oppression going on from the French government, Emmanuel Macron's government, still to this day. Why isn't the cheering going on for them? Or those still suffering through war, particularly in Syria, along with Iraq, Afghanistan, and even in Yemen as well, that have probably lost their homes, they've lost their families, friends, neighbours and colleagues in various bombings and shootings that have went on from the two warring factions in these places, or even those that suffered under oppression, especially after Syria and Iraq, from the terrorist groups like the Islamic State and various other so-called backed ones that we're told are good, but really they're not. When you look behind the scenes, they actually are terrorists. Well, where's the applause for them? I mean, why aren't we doing such things then? Oh yeah, because you'll probably get demonised by the mainstream media and told that you're believing fake news, false information, you ought to be prosecuted for it. Because that is where it's leading down, really, to the censorship of information and the free flowing of it. So, from doing this video here, I hope you pretty much understand the viewpoint from where I'm coming from, and I hope I'm not offending anybody else, really, as much as, unfortunately, if you want to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive, according to what the likes of Jordan Peterson say. So I hope you understand from the point of view where I'm going. There might be some of you that do think the same way. I'm not going to judge you on it, But please do go ahead and applaud if you want to do that. But for now, because it kind of feels like state-based propaganda, for that reason, I'm just going to say no thank you. As much as I do thank those doing the profession, I'm not going to try and be the one that has to be kind of forced to go outside and applaud for that time. Even if it's not actual by law, even if it's just being by group standards. So peace out everybody. Thanks for your understanding and your patience.